Dave, our next guest is the daughter of one of the most influential comedians of all time, maybe the most influential comedian. Her father hosted the first SNL, sold millions of records. Remember records? Was a fixture on late night TV. But, you know, Kelly Carlin, she's a remarkable talent in her own right. She's the author of A Carlin Home Companion, host of Waking from the American Dream, producer of the Emmy-winning HBO documentary George Carlin's American Dream, which I watched, which is unbelievable. Kelly brings heart, humor, wisdom to every conversation. This is quite a nice intro. Dave wrote this, including this conversation that we're going to have with her right now, because it's time for Minutia Men Celebrity Interview.
The following is a Tony Lasano podcast, an Opie show on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. This is the Minutia Men Celebrity Interview with Rick and Dave.
Kelly Carlin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys today?
We're doing good. You know, I have a story to tell you. I met your dad once, and it was in 2001. And he came to Chicago. I was a producer of a show called the John Records Landecker Show. It was on an oldies station. It was like a wacky morning show. And George came into the studio, and he was working on material for a new HBO special that he was working on, and was never funnier. I mean, we were holding our stomachs. We were laughing so hard. In fact, the show was so great. He was on for like an hour. The show was so great. He asked for a tape of it. He wanted to write down exactly the way he had phrased some things. So we gave him a tape, and we submitted it for the show of the year for our award season here in Chicago and the radios. And then 2 days later, something first of all, the special was called "I Kind of Like It When a Lot of People Die." Right? That's what was gonna. You know the story already. He was. He got to that point. It was September 7th, 2001. We submitted it for the awards. We thought there's no chance we're not going to win. This is the funniest show ever.
We're going to get a raise. We're going to get company cars.
And it turns out, because something else happened in the meantime.
Something happened. It's sort of big. It's not only did it ruin your plans, but certainly HBO called my dad and was like, know, you can't call the special that.
Do you remember what he called it eventually? I don't even remember, but it was not that.
You know what, guys? I can't remember, but what we do have is we have a recording that he did about 2 weeks before they were going to shoot this special. And 2 weeks before 9/11, so he was working on it, as you guys know. Yeah. And we had a tape cassette of it, and we ended up releasing that as a vinyl. Speaking of records, with the old title, the original title, and with the pieces in it that he had to take out for the HBO special because they were no longer appropriate. So people can still hear that and get that. If they get the vinyl, and I think we might have a digital download of it too, but we wanted to kind of honor that. And the thing about my dad too, is not only did he work stuff out, you know, like you said, on wherever he was, but as he was shaping it up until the day of, and, you know, my dad, saved a box of important tapes where he had been working out material over decades, and early stuff too. That when he died, there was this box in one of the units that I had of all of his stuff. Yes, I had my dad's stuff. And so it was a treasure trove. It's been a treasure trove for us to be able to go through and hear some of this raw stuff that he did.
Amazing.
Right. So, you know, I thought, first of all, happy birthday. Your birthday was a couple days ago, right?
It was. It was on Sunday. It was on Father's Day, actually. It finally fell on Father's Day. I was born the day before Father's Day, what the year it happened. But yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
Rick and I were born in 1963, too. So we are all members of the 1963 club.
Yeah, but we're far younger than you are. I'm like 6 weeks younger than you.
Yeah, and I'm like 9 weeks younger than you are.
So, I mean, one day we'll have the wisdom that you have right now.
Right. So how are your joints? How are your joints doing? And I'm not talking about weed. Are you doing all right? Everything all right?
No, the right hip is a little, grumpy at times.
So when I remember when your dad's album came out, Class Clown, it was released when I was like 9 or 10, I think it was.
Yep.
And you were the same age, obviously. And my dad was working at a record store at the time, and he got an advance copy. And my sister, who was 17, and your dad was already huge, and everybody loved your dad. And my sister, who was 17, had a bunch of friends over to listen to Class Clown before it was released anywhere, basically. And I remember thinking how cool my dad was for being able to for getting this record, right? How cool was your dad for being I mean, God, when you were 10, did you realize, I mean, we're little kids, you're worried about whatever. Did you know your dad was the coolest man on earth when you were 10?
By people's reaction around him, and certainly when he made that change and really grew his hair out, and the FM AM album was before Class Clown, which really represented the shift. I thought it was so clever the way he did that with that album. But yeah, I mean, we ended up the summer of 72 and 73. My mom and I would go on the road with my dad, and those were incredible days on college campuses. And from the reaction of the people, and I think I was old enough at the time to really kind of take in the reaction of what people felt about him and how they treated him. And yeah, he was definitely cool. And there's so many people I know who've talked about him, especially growing up with him, and his brother, Patrick, always said he was the hippest guy in the room. Mm-hmm. He was just one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah, we probably spent more hours prepping for this interview than any other one, just because it gave us a good excuse to go back and check out all this stuff. Great. But there's so much great stuff that you have spoken about over the years about your dad. First of all, I have to ask you something. We hadn't prepared this, but I heard you interviewed one time.
Right now. Kelly, we don't know how to do
Alert
this.
the front.
This is a good moment.
One time I heard you interviewed, I think by Gilbert Gottfried.
Yes.
Do you remember that interview?
One of my favorite interviews on earth ever.
That was the wildest thing. I mean, he was so crude to you.
Oh, yeah. We had fun. But that's the fun thing about those guys and those particular comedians.
Yeah.
Is, dark humor is so important because it really does crush all of the graces and niceties of our culture and polite society, and it brings an authenticity to it. And certainly growing up the daughter of my dad, being able to, I'm able to play in that sandbox with those guys. Yeah. And it's such a freedom and such a joy. And Gilbert, I miss him so much.
I know.
Because the political correctness of today is, he got canceled. He got canceled and he was no longer the voice of the duck or the goose or whatever it was, the duck. But, he was crude and I loved every moment of it.
It reminded me of The Aristocrats, which also, I think your dad is in that movie too, right?
Yes. And Paul Provenza directed it and ended up being the director of my solo show. Yeah.
That's right. But when Dave and I were in Second City school, we also did something called Bad Choice Theater before we got on stage, because they're always like, if you go crude, you're making a bad choice. Right. So we would go up there and just get it out of our system and just say the crudest, nastiest things you could possibly do.
Great. Yes.
What do you think your dad would be thinking about what's going on right now in the world? In America. Well, I mean, I'm sure you've thought about this. What?
Yeah, and I mean, all day long on social media, that's the big question people always ask out loud or to me. And what I say to people is, he said it all, you guys.
He did.
Yeah. If you listen to the last 25 years of his material, he was saying it all without the actual characters and players in place. Some of them were, but now it's just like all the idiocracy that he saw us doing and scolded us about. We completely ignored his warnings and went like, oh, let's take it to 11. This is what America has done, is taken it to 11, which I think, the way I think about it is, like an addict, you have to hit rock bottom. and this country is looking for its bottom still. I mean, obviously, we thought we had reached it before. And then the other thing I say to people, which is kind of a more recent thing for me, because I'm always looking for those who are helping us with the same BS detector that my dad had.
Yeah.
And I have to say, Bill Burr's last special really helped me. Like, he's got some perspectives and some ways of saying things and seeing things that I was like, oh, there's my dad's voice. Mm-hmm. There's that perspective that can ground us in reality, help us make fun of it enough, but also bring us back to our truth. And so I'm really a big fan of Bill's right now. Have
you told him that?
I have not. I don't really know him that well. We've kind of crossed paths a few times in different projects and things, but he's not one of those ones I could probably... I mean, maybe I could pick up the phone and call him.
I bet that would mean the world to him. I mean, there's one thing about comedians, and we know a ton of them. They never have anything nice to say about other comedians, except for your dad.
Right.
It's the only one.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that guy, no, he's not funny at all. You know, George Carlin. Okay. George Carlin, yes, okay. Yeah, he was funny.
You know, we had Tommy Chong on a few. I don't know, it was a couple of years ago.
Yes.
You know, the career was pretty concurrent at the same time, you know,
for
definitely
sure.
Huge.
Yes.
In fact, he was even on your dad's sitcom in the 70s. And this might shock you. I think the theme was about marijuana.
What?
But, you know, Tommy Chong said that at the height of Cheech and Chong and your dad's career, and I think we even talked about your dad, they were as big as the biggest rock stars, right? And that was when you were basically a teenager. How did you navigate that world?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, this is why I wrote a memoir, because it was such an interesting life to have lived and to be an only child in my family. And my family's going through the 60s and 70s chaos of addiction and all of the experimentation with all the chemicals. And my dad, I mean, but see, from day one, even before my dad was the counterculture guy, he was on the road a lot. And so that's kind of part of your life as a family member of a rock star, is you don't see them very often.
Yeah.
And when they come home, they need to recover and find time to be a parent, find time to be a dad. And so there was a lot of missing him. And then, like I said, when we went on, you know, I tell a story in my solo show when I did it and the book, where being a kid, and it was my dad's first Carnegie Hall, and everyone in Carnegie Hall stomping their feet and chanting, George, wow. George, wow. George. And then him coming out on stage and the electricity of the crowd exploding. Oh. And for me, being a kid backstage, it was like this, you know, it's like that moment of seeing God, you know, like the numinosity of it all and the electricity of the moment. You really do understand how that kind of life and that kind of reaction from people can confuse your ego and confuse who you are and what you are. And as a kid, I think it did confuse me a little bit too, because then I kind of had this standard of like, oh, if a whole theater isn't stomping their feet and chanting my name, will I ever feel like I'm successful?
Oh, wow.
And I think most of my adult life, really up until just the last few years, you guys, has been me trying to understand that line and who am I and what does it mean to be on a stage, because I ended up getting on a stage after my dad died, and what is fame and what is success and what is real and what is the art of it and what is the soul of it and what is this other cultural weird ego game. And you know, after my dad died, a lot of comedians came to me. I didn't know any comedians before my dad died. I knew very few. My dad was not a guy who hung out with lots of people, was not that social guy sitting at the booth at the end of the night and all of that. But my dad died, and these big comedians began calling me just to say how sorry they were, but they also started mentoring me. And Gary Shandling was one of them, and he became a big mentor of mine. And he and I talked so often about how to stay authentic and real and be who you are and not let your ego get inflated by the game of it all. And what I find so interesting about my dad was that he too had his struggles with that because he was the short-haired guy doing the straight stuff and then became the counterculture guy, found his voice, and then, as you know in the documentary, had to find his voice over and over again, and also had to balance for himself that that adoration he had of like Danny Kaye when he was a kid, but then his authenticity, and he decided that if he ever became famous, he'd never turn away anyone who wanted an autograph or just wanted to say hello or take a picture, because that meant the world to him. Those people, those fans, weren't just something to feed his ego, but they were like family to him. And so he's, his path really has helped me navigate this kind of other path that I had, being in the shadow of all of that. And so it's a really weird life, you guys.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your book, Carlin Home Companion, that Growing Up with George, that's the memoir you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
And then the documentary, American Dream, which was amazing.
Yeah, Judd did an
HBO.
amazing job.
Oh.
Yeah, Mike Bonfiglio and Judd Apatow directed it, and I just handed them all of the archives and everything and said, do whatever you want, and was floored at what they did with it.
So, okay, I was wondering about that because, I mean, there's so many great people in there. Jerry Seinfeld, Stephen Colbert, Bette Midler. And you, I know you were a part of it because it, mentions that you were. But so that's what it was. It was just like, here you go. This is my box of cool stuff.
Yeah, and they interviewed me twice. I was the first, and of course, we signed the deal with them and HBO, and then 2 weeks later the pandemic hit. But luckily, it was an archival.
Another one. Another one. First 9/11 and then the pandemic.
It's your fault. It's your family's
fault. What is going on?
Yeah.
Who knows? It's insane. But luckily, it was a heavy archival thing, so they had a ton of stuff to go through. I mean, 50 years of material from my dad, and they interviewed me first. And they interviewed me last.
Oh, cool.
And which was really great because I knew I was telling the Carlin family story. And then when I got the rough cut, I knew nothing about what they had done with everything. I got the rough cut, and about 25 minutes into it, the first part, I looked at my husband and I said, wow, I'm really in this thing. Like it was like I had no idea that, but I feel so honored that the work I had done on myself to find my way and to find the love and the truth of the Carlin family that I got to write about in the memoir and do on stage, that Judd took my memoir and took my perspective on our family's journey and really put it into the documentary. And I really do feel that the reason I did the memoir to begin with in the show was because I wanted people to know the human George Carlin,
right. Mm-hmm.
Not the guy, because my dad didn't talk about his family on stage. My dad didn't talk about us on talk shows. He never, he was not that guy ever. He kept it very separate, and himself and his personal pain and suffering and journey and discovery, very separate. And I wanted people, for his legacy, I wanted to know the work that I could do to help my dad's legacy was to know that his humanity got to be seen by people. And the thing I loved about doing my solo show was I was really nervous about it at the beginning because I talked about addiction and all the craziness and the fighting and all that kind of stuff. And, people always loved my dad more at the end of the show than they had at the beginning. And that's what I saw with the documentary too.
It
and
made
was
him
so
a three-dimensional person. I mean, it made
absolutely,
him
absolutely. And I really do believe that it gave us the edge. I mean, this is it's not my ego speaking, but I think it's my artist heart speaking that, by Judd including our family story so deeply in it, that Emmy that we received means that much more to me.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really...
Now, you talk about how the archives are out there. But there's also this new thing with AI where deep fakes of your dad are being put together, or they're being used by people to, promote this or promote that or whatever. I mean,
yeah,
pretty scary stuff. How hard is it to keep on top of that sort of thing?
It's hard and it's expensive because you have to get lawyers to write letters. And as you know, in January of 2024, two comedians decided to, well, they purported that their AI bot partner of their podcast, this is the Dudsy podcast or Dudesy, this AI bot purported that he, wrote and produced a new George Carlin special, and that was January of 2024. And turns out that the comedians actually wrote it, but we were kind of this on the front line test case until we found out that they had written it 3 weeks later. That, we thought we were going to be able to go all the way and make some real law about this to protect this kind of stuff. But as we know, we're still in the fight of it now. And unfortunately, due to the current administration, there's really no one who is fighting for artists' intellectual property or even identity. There was a bill making its way through Congress, but it's a whack-a-mole situation, and we do what we can. And all I can do is we can put out our own we have an official George Carlin YouTube channel that's very successful. We have an official George Carlin Instagram, account that's successful. We're trying to participate in a way that people know where to find the original, the stuff. And, and of course, I'm still alive and have a voice, so I can, keep at it.
And super young.
Yes.
So young, you guys.
Yeah.
So
super young.
Yeah.
And I just want to speak just for a moment about the archives.
Okay.
I donated all my dad's tangible archives to a place called the National Comedy Center in Jamestown, New York. And this is a place that we've been open for about 6 years now, 6.5 years. And we just received Joan Rivers' archives. We've got Carl Reiner's. This place is amazing. It's in Jamestown, New York, which is where Lucille Ball was born. It is between Cleveland and Niagara Falls, basically. That's how people get there.
Desi Lou I remember being there. It's like in a little town.
It's a little town. It's where that horrible Lucy.
Uh-oh. Did we lose you?
But it is a place that's close by to many, many, many big cities. And, it is like Cooperstown. It's like you go there because you want to see the baseball. Well, you go here because you want to see the comedy. There's a huge festival happening the first week of August. We have Jon Stewart headlining. But you can go in and have this incredible experience it's all interactive. It's not a museum. You're not just looking at artifacts. You're very few artifacts. You're laughing your ass off the whole time you're there. And you really, really need 2 or 3 days if you're a comedy geek to take your time, because you will go down into rabbit holes of comedy that you didn't know you could go down into. It's a profound place. My dad is the only archive that has its own special corner because I was kind of the first domino for these people. And I'm on the board with Lewis Black and, just so many big people. And it's summertime. So I hope, people in your region will come over and hang out with us.
Well, the Hall of Fame induction ceremony for Cooperstown or for baseball is that a couple of days beforehand.
Yeah, we're going to be there because we're publishers, and one of our books is about Dick Allen, who was just inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So we're going to be there. So maybe we'll.
Are you going to?
Well, you guys need to come over. You need to come over to Jamestown. It's in the western part of New York. It's just below Erie, Pennsylvania. And, you've been there. It's in the middle of kind of nowhere, and yet it's not. It's on the way to Niagara Falls from Cleveland. So, it's Ohio adjacent, Pennsylvania adjacent, and it's a great party. The comedy festival is going to be great. Bill Murray's band is going to play, and it's going to be a wild week. It's going to be great.
Are you going to be there? Are you?
I will be there, and if you guys show up, let me know. I'll give you a VIP tour.
Oh, my! Okay. Look at that.
All right. Well, we just may have to.
So I went on your website. And I love your website.
And by the way, that's my old website. A new website's about to be built. But anyway, Thank you.
You have this really cool quote that's on there. And let me read this. It's ideas of who we think we are have an expiration date. And most likely the one in your head right now are past due. That is really wonderful. Tell us a little bit about, and you mentioned a little earlier on in the interview, kind of figuring out who you are, right, over the last few years, right? So Tell us, I know you have a master's degree in psychology.
Yep.
Tell us.
And I have
Jungian. Yeah. You know,
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So I have a community online where I have lots of courses and coaching and teaching and everything called Humans on the Verge. And I actually have a new podcast called Humans on the Verge also, where I talk about a lot of this kind of stuff. And exactly, you know, when we grow up, we get ideas and rightly so, by family and culture about who we're supposed to be and what's kind of required of us and what's necessary to be an adult and all that's important stuff. But along the way, we also get messages that really aren't about who we essentially and authentically are. And even myself growing up, you know, with a dad who was authentic and as real and as raw as anybody, I too got those messages. They just happened to all of us. Mm-hmm. And part of our work in adulthood is to really question those ones, the things that do not fit us and do not make us feel alive and full of joy, and understand that life can be actually full of ease also. And so a lot of my work personally, especially the last, 30 years, was kind of unpacking all of that for myself. And then I went and got my master's and really studied transformation and how to help other people walk through transformation, became a certified life coach and stuff. And nowadays, I have this beautiful space where people can come in and get all sorts of support about that, where they get to kind of hear the voices in their head and the ones that don't work for them anymore, and to encourage the ones that do work for us. I work with creatives. I work with people who are writing memoir. I work with people who are interested in understanding their life story, the past, so that they can put it in the proper place and really understand it, and then write their life story into the future. Also, that's a lot of the work we do. And I'm just very interested, that's why I call the program Humans on the Verge and my podcast that. I'm really interested in that place where we all get to in life. And there's many, many passages in life where we get to this, where we are at a new threshold. And we know it's a turning point for us. And we know that we're being invited into a wider or deeper or more authentic version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's the place I like to help people walk through, because in order to walk through that space, you have to begin to let go of who you were. And when you do that, you can feel a little lost at sea. And so we do a lot of practices and we hold a lot of spaces and we have a community of other people who are feeling a little lost at sea, but not in a scary, bad way. But there is a little bit of kind of a dark night of the soul that you do have to go through. You kind of have to shed what no longer works so that you can have a new birth, a rebirth. And so there is a death and rebirth cycle in life many, many times. And I really find that work juicy because I've kind of paid attention to my own process through that. And I'm in it again right now. Like I've had this Humans on the Verge thing for about 7 years. It's been much more of a straightforward coaching program. But what's calling to me now in my early 60s is to be more creative, do more creative writing. I put that on the shelf, and be out in the world a little bit more, maybe as a mentor or as a teacher, and being able to share my story, but really to be able to hold space for the big verge we're all on. And on my podcast, I interview people who talk about individual change, but a lot of the people I talk about too is the collective change. We're obviously in a huge, huge shift on this planet, in this country. And how do we walk through the messy middle, the messy betwixt and between collectively without killing ourselves or each other, and making it through to the other side with as authentically resourced as we can. And I really find that's my work in the world right now.
That's beautiful. Do you do it online as well? I mean, if someone is not in the area,
I do it almost all online. Okay. And I'm actually nowadays starting to go back live again, but I do it all online. And so the website is humansontheverge.com. We're actually publishing a new website this week. Oh. But you can find my YouTube channel also, which is called Humans on the Verge, with my new podcast. You can hear my new podcast on any podcast thing. And, I've got an Instagram and I'm on Blue Sky and I'm still on Twitter a little bit, but I'm out there trying to get things done. But I'm really, really excited. I really want to come out to people's communities to be able to teach and talk and mentor and help people have some experiences and stuff. So I feel like I'm being reborn as a person who gets to like travel again and see people in person and actually hold space in a room and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about this new chapter.
We can feel your passion here. This is wonderful.
True.
I'm getting all goosebumpy, and I'm a German.
Perfect. I love it. I made a German goosebump.
Wait, what is what is this? Is this emotions? Yeah.
Well, Carl Jung was Swiss, and they're pretty much German. So there you go.
Well, would you like to hear Dave's favorite Carl Jung joke?
Please.
All right.
Why would and I hate to tell you this, I did use AI for this, and the only reason I did this, and I'm not. There's no deep fake here. I'm like, I got to do a Carl Jung joke, and I'm not out. And I love it. Why was Carl Jung such a terrible roommate?
I don't know why.
Well, because he kept inviting his collective unconscious over without asking.
See, that's a deep one for all of the Jungian psychologists out there.
For all you Jungians out there, you get it.
Right. There's for the 6 of them that are listening to this podcast right now, they're getting into car accidents because they're laughing so hard.
Exactly.
Kelly, thanks for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful,
and you're a delight.
And you know what? We will. Perhaps we can.
Yeah, we'll try to get to that. That sounds like fun.
And email me, you guys. Okay. You've got my deets now, and let's do it.
That's great.
Sounds good.
Thank you, and much health and happiness, and you're a young kid like us.
Yes.
So
exactly.
So young.
Footloose, fancy free, not a care in the world.
Exactly.
Running through the grass in our bare feet. Right.
Ouch! I just stepped on something.
Right. And Rick Scout can only make it do it for and his elephantitis can only make it. But this thought is there. Thanks, Kelly. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You guys, thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Right. Bye. There she goes.
Okay,
Kelly
that was
Carlin.
not the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I actually do. I don't know if you can. I do have kind of goosebumpy from that.
You do. You've always been Jungian. I've always said that about you.
Right. That B.F. Skinner can go screw himself.
We had so much we could have asked her. We had a couple of clips on hand. Yeah. You sent me this one. You want to play a little bit? Sure. This we didn't get a chance to do this. This is from the George Carlin Show, Season 2, Episode 2.
So this is in the 80s or 90s?
Yeah, early 90s maybe. Here we go.
Hey, so what are you watching?
Oh, the Cosby Mysteries. I got it on tape.
Not much of a mystery. I know who did it.
But you saw this one?
Nah, but my cop instincts are never wrong. It's the black guy.
That's Bill Cosby.
Oh, so what are you saying? Famous black guys don't commit crimes?
Okay. How Kelly was saying that her dad was forecasting the future. So
we have people to thank. First of all, let's thank Brandon Herman for scoring this interview for us. Appreciate it.
Just wonderful.
Tony Lasano, the executive producer of the show. Thanks very much, Tony. And also Ed Silla.
Ed Silla for distributing.
Distributor for the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. So we love doing this show.
Yeah. And if you're famous, give us a call.
Right.
We'll be happy to have you on.
Exactly. You have to be a celebrity-ish. We're, honestly,
we
stretch the term sometimes, but this one I think qualified today.
Without question, she was really wonderful.
Just a great time. But we will be back again. We'll be back again soon with a brand new episode of
Minutia Man Celebrity Interview.
The proceeding was a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Find our other great shows on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and at RadioMisfits.com. Thank you.
This has been a presentation of Opie Productions.
Tony, can you shut up?